Welcome to Challenger Deep, athletes rising above adversity, where we explore stories of athletes who've faced their lowest points and risen to incredible heights. Did you know Challenger Deep is the lowest point in the ocean, making it the lowest point on Earth? When you're at your lowest, the beautiful truth is there's nowhere to go but up. We all face adversity, but how we choose to respond defines who we become. Join hosts Jeff Hagee and Tammy Matheny as we share powerful stories of everyday athletes' resilience, growth, and triumph. These stories will inspire you to rise above your challenges and reach new heights. Let's dive in.
All right. Well, hey, we want to welcome everyone to today's episode of Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity podcast. I want to do a different introduction than I've done before on this because it's actually, we just had this conversation offline, but I want to tell you a little bit about how my relationship with this guest came about. So when I was coaching basketball a few years back, she had been to a few of my basketball games that I wasn't aware of. She's really good friends with my good friend who was my assistant coach, and she was there watching his daughter, and she'd been to a few games. On the third game, I actually had an opportunity to meet her after. Joseph says, "Hey, I've got to introduce you to a good friend of mine." Met Wendy, and you know what? It's interesting how life takes you in different directions, because from that meeting in a gym one day, had the opportunity to have her and her amazing husband Casey in my office here, and then recently I actually stayed at their house out in Kansas, and we've just had a great relationship. My son got a really cool opportunity to go join a company, and I was like, you know what, first you got to give Wendy a call. And I was like, hey Wendy, this is what's happening. She's like, you don't think I know? I kind of helped orchestrate this whole thing. And so she was a great mentor to him. She's been a great mentor to me. And it's turned into something right now. We're doing some things together that I get to talk to her almost every day and learn from her and grow with her. And it's been awesome. So Wendy Winn is our guest today. I'm excited to have Wendy here. And now, Wendy, just tell us a little bit about yourself and just justify this introduction.
All right. Well, that's a really great introduction, Jeff, and I really appreciate that. I will say, when I was watching basketball, I've coached basketball, I've played basketball, I've coached high school volleyball, and so what I saw and witnessed Jeff do was simply amazing. He was a quiet coach, but he actually had a force reckon inside of him that he could touch those athletes and make them do things they probably wouldn't want to do. He could help them stay after practice, shoot more baskets, believe them in themselves, as well as Joseph Kimball. He's been a great mentor to me, and his faith and Jeff's faith is, wow, it's equally yoked in mine, but maybe a little bit stronger. And I really do appreciate that kind gesture of, who I am and what I am. But simply, I'm a team roper. I live in Kansas with my family. My husband and I have been high school coaches. We've been in the wrestling, basketball, volleyball. We've coached college athletics. We recently stopped that and we're moving in a different direction. And I grew up in Idaho. So I grew up moving hand lines and wheel lines, and I was in love with horses, and I was in love with, I don't know, everything cowboy, and I married one. And so my journey has been anywhere from inside a gym to outside a gym. I've taught cycling. I've been in the CrossFit. I've run races. But now I guess I go across the country and I teach people by faith about horses and saddles and biomechanics of the horse, and horsemanship. So my grandpa, my great grandpa were horsemen, and I took what I knew from them, and then I've increased my knowledge by study and diligence, but really by God. God's led me to where I am today, and he's going to continue to lead me. So I'm on God's path. I'm a vessel for Jesus Christ, and that's who I am. Just like everybody else, a son and a daughter of God.
Hey, this episode of Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity is brought to you by doTERRA, the world's leader in essential oils and wellness products. Are you ready to fuel your health and recovery like a pro? Listeners of this podcast can get 25% off all their doTERRA products and supplements. Head to the link in our show notes or go to confidentathleteprogram.com/doTERRA and start your journey to peak performance today.
Awesome. Well, I think that's why we've been able to develop such a great relationship, because we do have so many things in common, from sports to rodeo to faith to family, all of these different things. And so I really appreciate that relationship we have. And this is a cool interview because this is the first time we've actually had an audience with us. Wendy's actually up in upstate New York right now, and she's running one of her horsemanship clinics, and we've got the whole clinic there, and we just had an
Yep.
opportunity to meet them all, some amazing people. So this is going to be fun. So, you know what, Tammy, I'm going to let you start because I know the question you like to start things with. So let's go there.
Hey, well, I always like to ask, since this whole podcast is helping athletes and other people learn how to embrace adversity and rise above it. So, I want to start off, Wendy, with if someone says, "Hey, what is adversity?" Because we throw that word out there a lot, but what does that mean to you?
Adversity, what it means to me, right, is I always think of the song of, is your foundation built on sand or a rock? And if your foundation is built on a rock and the winds blow and the sand gets in your eye, you can move your head, but your feet don't go anywhere. And if you're built on the sand, right, the winds come, the sand blows, and your feet move. Adversity is trials. Adversity are hard times. Adversity is maybe a small injury. Maybe you ruin your ACL. But to me, adversity is how you view it and what you do with it. It's a small trickle. And if you hang in adversity, right, and you hang in that dark time and you get negative, you can't get out of adversity. But if you turn adversity into light, the faster your mind knows that you see it, you know what it is, you grapple towards the light and you continue to move forward and get stronger. Adversity is minimal, in my opinion. So adversity is what you think it is. It can be hard or it can be not hard. And I don't think adversity is hard. Um, I think the Savior, right? He had the hardest adversity. His father asked him to get on the cross and atone for our sins. Think that was hard? You know what made him through that point? Our joy, our happiness, our sorrows. He remembered that, and that's why he was able to do what he did. Adversity is in the eye of the beholder.
I like that. I don't know if you noticed, but I was jotting down your definition. But I always enjoy hearing that from people that have really embraced adversity and see it in a positive light. Because, I
Right.
like to, we need adversity to show what we're capable of and how good that we can be. So,
Yeah. If you never know good and evil, and you never know hardship and joy, right? How do you understand really joy? How do you understand love if you don't understand the other side of it? So you always have to understand both sides of what the trial is and then move through forward, because it'll always come out, and you may lose someone. It may be the loss of a dog or the loss of a parent or the loss of something hard, the loss of a job. But if you'll look for the good in every situation, it just makes it so much better.
sorry.
I love that, Wendy, because in our book, Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity, that was the whole idea in the book and this podcast, because so many people face adversity and they crumble and it's over at that point. And the stories we like to share are stories of, look, these people faced adversity, they overcame it and grew from it, and look where they are now. And we want people to be able to use those stories as inspiration to do that. And the way you explain that, I think that's the perfect way to look at our adversity, because in the moment the adversity can be so bad, and justifiably, but in the long run, the lessons we've learned from it and the things, if we've been able to look for the positive, if we've been able to learn from it and grow from it, it was a stepping stone. So I love the way that you've talked about that. Is there a story of adversity that you could share from us that has been that opportunity to not only rise above, but advance because of it?
And I'm gonna have to interject before she answers
Yeah.
because I had to chuckle when you said, "Is there a story?" Because I have a feeling Yeah,
Oh,
tons
she's got lots of stories.
Yeah,
I could start telling them. I know enough of them.
right. I I think, well, I shouldn't say I think. I've been cussing these guys about saying I think. So one story that does come to mind that I don't tell a lot and I won't go into great detail is when I was young. And so we were raised outside of Grace, Idaho on a 3,000-acre farm and ranch, and my parents had a dairy, and they chose to take that farm and make their own way, because my father had some run-ins with his father, and they didn't like each other, and he hated his brother and his brother hated him. And so we had this bit of confusion in our lives. And even though my parents were members of the church, my dad was in and out of the church. And if the wrong bishop got in or this got in, he would leave. And as time went on, like, they lost their farm. And I could see that adversity in my father's life led him to anger and hate. And that anger and hate got pushed in my corner. And it got pushed in my corner not only in verbal cues, physical cues, mental and spiritual cues, but sexual. And when you face the strongest adversity and it comes from your father, you can run away, right? And I chose for a long time to run away. And I don't share this story because it's a hard one. But when I chose to face my Goliath, when I chose to stand for what I believed in, I was 40 years old and I had no self-confidence. Um, I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be. And God kept sending me mentors, and he kept sending me people, and he kept believing in me. And one of those people was my husband. And he knew about this when I turned 40. And from 40 to 52, man, we prayed and we fasted and we tried to figure out what to do and how to do it. And he just held in there, and he really showed me unconditional love. And so I finally took that, and I let it out. And I told one of my greatest friends, Greg Kessler, who I was contemplating suicide. And he called me and he stayed on the phone with me, and he met me in the front parking lot of a store in Scipio, Utah. And I expunged every ounce of my life to this man, and I told him what had happened. And as I did that, he he had me write it down, and he said, "You can write it down and send it to your dad. You can write it down and hand it to your dad, or you can write it down and burn that shit." And I wrote it down and I burned it. And I swore that day I was only going to move forward. And as I moved forward, God just continued to send help, and he continued to strengthen my soul. And it's pretty crazy that I was active in the church, but I still had all of this emotion, and I kept thinking I could just pray my way through it. And it wasn't until I turned my little skeleton into a person and I let him out of the closet. And I don't share that story because it's knee deep and ugly. But I will let you guys know that one way I faced that adversity is I spoke at my father's funeral. And my mother asked me to give a tribute to my father. And I did that. And in that tribute, I told the crowd, because his brother was in the crowd, and I had a stake president, President Sterling Knapp at the time. He asked me, "Can you really do this, Wendy?" And I said, "My mom has asked me to do it, and I know it's right." So I spent about 6 hours in my office one night. I wrote the talk, and in the talk, I said this one line: "My father came into this world a son of God, and my father left a son of God. What he has done is up to him and God to be forgiven. I can't wait for him to run back and repent to me, because my salvation is my salvation. If I don't forgive my father, then I can't be forgiven." And you want to talk about adversity in your marriage? You want to talk about working through intimacy? I'm here to tell you I'm married to Superman. And that Superman has been so kind and just what a support. And because he has a belief in God. So I've risen above it. And I love that fact. I love that I've risen above it, and I'll see my dad again someday. And truly, I know that I'll be able to stand in front of him. If he's done what he needs to do to be forgiven, I'll be able to tell him, "Right, well done, thou good and faithful servant." So it's knee deep and thick, but that was real adversity, and that's how I made it through. Lots of prayer, lots of time. Man, the wind in New York is so blowing in the back of this trunk. Like, I can't believe that it's blowing like this, but the wind is in my eyes. So that's it. There you go. That's the onion. I just peeled it back.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing that. I think there's so much to unpack what you said, Wendy, but looking at you, reading the stuff that you do, hearing the stuff that you do, um, you exude so much confidence, so much faith, so much strength. And I think that's even more important that you share that so people understand that even though you seem like this superwoman, you call your husband Superman, but I think you're a superwoman. But even though that you have that you had to go through the hard stuff, and that is one of the reasons you are so strong today. And I think that's the bottom line, the message that can empower so many people. It's not that you've had it easy. You are where you are today because of what you've gone through. So I think that's a wonderful lesson to hopefully inspire others. And I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's everybody has their fire. Everybody has it, and everybody has that story. And I think that the more you move through those stories and you make them strengths, the easier your life becomes, and then you attract strength, faith-based other people, and they share their trial and error, but they also share their joy. And then you take that joy and you move forward with it, and then it brings velocity to your joy. And then pretty soon those hard things are like so long ago. You're like, man, I forgot about that time in my life, until one little thing reminds you, and then you're like, well, happened, but not today, right? I'm gonna keep moving forward. So thanks for the compliment. I'm not Superwoman, I'm just the team rope. Remember that? With a big story. I do like the rope.
And a lot of great stories that, as you were talking about that, one of the things I just want to throw a plug out there, and I will put the link in the show notes and on the blog. Wendy was also one of the speakers in our recent Igniting the Next Generation Summit, and again shared another powerful story. And so I'm going to share that link with everyone as well. And I've had the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with Wendy and hear some amazing stories and learn from her. And Daxon's told me the same thing. They spent a lot of time on the road together, and he's like, man, I just love driving and listen to stories. And so really appreciate what we can learn from what you're sharing, Wendy.
Thank
One
you.
of the things that I would love to talk about, I have the opportunity to look at your amazing website all the time, but when I was looking at your schedule, you're all over the world teaching horsemanship, teaching all these things. But what we had this conversation with those that are there with you today. It's more than horsemanship. And I think that's where the power of your stories and who you are is so important. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that? What you attribute to success and your personal development and all those things that you talk a lot about faith and how that all ties together in making decisions and overcoming adversity.
Sure. You're right. I do travel a lot. So just to give you a brief introduction of where I was in the last 10 days, I had flown to Fort St. John, British Columbia, and it was right about 10 days ago. It was a reschedule of one that I didn't quite get into in July. And so Diane had rebooked those people, and we met that day. I flew in really late that night, and I think it was about 11:30, 12 o'clock when I got to bed. And we got up at 6, and we visited at their table for a few minutes, and then we started the clinic at 8. And I think I fit about 45 horses. And so when I say fit, I actually watch those horses on the ground on a lunge line, with saddle, without saddle. We talk about the pressures, we talk about the biomechanics of the animal, the biomechanics of a human, and how they correspond together. And then we go about, and we had I think we had 3 sessions that day. So the sessions are 3 hours. So anywhere from 5 to 8 people come. And then as they come, we discuss their horses. We actually fit and look at their backs and the strength of the back and the strength of the bellies and how their feet hit the ground. So we talk about dentistry, we talk about shoeing, we talk about saddles, we talk about pads, and then we make some adjustments. And then in the afternoon, or in the later part of that clinic, is we actually go through and stretch those horses, and we release some nerve pressure. We feel those horses, and old horses or young horses, we can evaluate as a horse owner, and I can help someone understand that it's not really them. Maybe it's their saddle, maybe it's their pad. And sometimes we do have to change saddles, and sometimes we do have to change pads. But a lot of times it really is the mechanics of the horse. And so if I can teach them how to build muscle, strengthen their horse lasts longer. So we did that in British Columbia, and I had to fly out the next morning. Well, I didn't get done till 11:30 that night, and I leave my phone down. So if I'm in a clinic, I don't answer my phone. I picked my phone up at 11:30, and it said your flight had been canceled from Fort St. John, British Columbia to Vancouver. It was good, but Vancouver to Denver, because of Air Canada, Jeff, Air Canada, was on strike. My flight had been canceled. So I'm like, okay. So Diane's sitting there with me, and she's like, you don't even seem frazzled. I'm like, why should I be frazzled? I just got to figure out how to get out of Canada. She's like, well, don't you have to be somewhere? And I said, yes. And so I had to be in Colorado by Tuesday. So I prayed about it and thought about it. And then I was like, oh, I remember I have a friend right in Washington. So I called my friend and I said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? And she's like, nothing. Where are you? I said, well, I'm stuck in Canada. I said, could you pick me up in Vancouver? She's like, you bet I can. So she came across, Tara came across, picked me up, got me to the rental car, right? We get there 15 minutes after it's closed. She's like, oh no. I said, there's got to be another one around here. So we call, sure enough, there's one at the airport. We go there, I jump in a rental car. And then she's like, could you help me with this horse? I have this client. We're really struggling. We tried to fit it, didn't work. So I stopped there, helped her with a horse, and I left Belham, Washington at 2 p.m. And I got driving, and I thought I can make it to Filer, Idaho. My granddaughter lives there. I thought I can get that far. So I stopped and I got some caffeine, and I only made about 60 more miles, and my eyelids became pretty heavy. So I stopped at a friend's house in Pendleton. I stayed there, had a great conversation with her. And then I got up at 5:30 and hit the road again. And I got to Heber City, Utah, and this is how the spirit works, and this is how I work. I got the inclination. I hadn't seen a friend in a really long time, and there's a great ice cream place where we always used to stop when we were high school rodeoing. So I texted her and I said, hey, you want to meet at the ice cream shop? She's like, are you in Utah? I said, yep, I'm in Utah. So I stopped and had ice cream with a friend, and we visited about life, and it was amazing. Sonia Fitzgerald. Her little sister was one of my best friends who died of cancer. And then I got on my way again. I got out through Vernal, Utah, where Casey and I lived for 10 years, and it was like memory lane. I got to the guy's RB or his little house in the middle of the night on Monday night and got settled in. And it was a wonderful place. Alex was so kind to make sure I had a great bed to sleep in. Got up the next morning and I got to spend all day with him and his family. And then, right, I'm off again. Well, guess what? My Denver flight got canceled, but I still have a rental car. So another lady called me and said she was struggling with saddle fit. I said, where do you live? She said, Denver. I said, well, guess what? I'm right outside of there. She's like, no way. Would you stop? I said, you bet. So I stopped, right? And I helped her with her horse. And then I got home. And this is kind of how fast I go. But I have another client, Allison, who we've been coaching. Her and her husband are vets in Oklahoma. And she's like, there's this really great roping in Stephenville. It's a woman's rope, and you want to go? I'm like, you know I do. So I got home late Wednesday night, got to bed, text her, said, I've got to take this rental car back Thursday morning. The rental car place 2 hours from me where my Jeep was because all my flights got canceled. So I got 60 miles away from the airport, realized I didn't have my Jeep keys. So I turned around, I texted Allison and said, hey, if you guys need to go, like, go ahead and go. I'll be fine. Luckily, she was like, Wendy, I feel like I'm supposed to wait for you. So she did. I got on the road. I got to Guthrie, Oklahoma at 6 p.m. that night with my horse in tow. Luckily, my boy Dixon and his helper, Danica, did my chores. They had to feed Casey's milk cow that's on calves, the whole deal. And I got rolling. I got there. We drove most of the night, got to Stephenville the next morning, got our horses fed. And I got up and she's like, aren't you tired? And I'm like, yeah, but not bad. And we saddled and we entered, and sure enough, Jody Cornea and her bunch running the rope, and I know them really well. And I didn't have much luck at the rope, and I did my job for the most part, made a few errors. But Allison, the lady I was coaching, made the short round with Whitney Del Salvo, who's an 8.5, best healer in the world. Like I just marveled at her talent all day. Beverly Robbins, some of my biggest heroes were there. And even though I didn't make the short round, I did my job. My horse did her job. And then I turned around and she's like, "What are we doing today?" I said, she's like, "You want to stop at NRS?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "We can trade that saddle, huh?" So we stopped, saw my friend Kyle at NRS, helped her with the saddle. And then I said, "You want to rope tonight?" She's like, "There's no way." I said, "Let's run a set." So her husband had the lights on and we backed our horses in, and I showed her a few things about getting her horse square to stay in, keep her hands right, had a great practice session. Then she's like, "What time you leaving in the morning?" And I said, "I got to be home. Clients are flying in at 2 from Montana." I said, "But we can run a set." She's like, "No way." I said, "Let's run a set, 6 a.m." And her husband's looking at me like, "Dude, you're crazy." I said, "No, let's do it." So we run a set and we have a great practice, and I get back home at 2. Got to have dinner with my friends from Montana. Got to see my son and his wife and their little girl. And Casey had flown to Florida. And so I got to be home for a couple of days. But you say, how do you do that? Why do you do that? And number one, I have another friend, Gus Olds. He has a deal called Rider Movement. He's from Europe, and he's really been helping me with my body, my conditioning. So not only blood tests, but your genetic testing, and then your sugars and your proteins. And so he changed my diet, and then he's been sending me exercises I can do on the road. But number one is my faith and my belief that I am a vessel for the Savior. Maybe I am super bunny, I don't know, but Gus asked me the other day, "You're utilizing everything you have." He's like, "How do you feel?" I'm like I got superpowers. He was like, "That's crazy." And I'm like, "No, that's God." And so there it is. That's what I do. That is a common day. I stayed home for 2 days. I flew to New York. I'm here in New York for 2 days. I'm going to drive to Maine on my day off because I've never been up that way. I'm going to have a 2-day clinic in Maine. And then I do have 14 days before I speak at the Relief Society State Conference in Salina, Kansas, and then I fly to Australia for about 20 days of fitting clinics and meeting saddle builders and tree builders that God's just kept exposing truths to me that I needed to know and understand. And man, I feel like I have the world at my fingertips.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm an endurance athlete and you just wore me out.
Well, get some more Jesus.
You need a podcast or a journal or some
I have
kind
a
of.
journal. I
You took
have.
video of the wild world of Wendy and
Oh,
everyone following your adventures because
yeah.
it sounds like never a boring day to say the least. But
No, no.
love it, love it.
Thank you. It's pretty fun. It's
Yeah.
a people energize you if you let them. And if you attract the right people, light attracts light. And so I come here, I'm not tired because these women are, you already heard them, right? They are willing to learn. They're good horsemen. They have good horses. And so they energize me, whether they know it or not. And they're all staring at me like, what are they? What's she going to say about us? But that's how I get energy. That's you get around the right people. And once you cut off the people in your life that don't work for you, that's not a bad thing. That's God's way of saying, set yourself free, believe in yourself, empower yourself, say good things about others, be kind to others, be the good Samaritan, stop, help someone, because that truly is who God wants us to be. And when we are all we can be, he just continues to open those doors. And right, there's so many scriptures that say to that thing, right? If you pray, if you fast, if you show me your love, I'm going to embrace that, and I'm going to open doors of prosperity for you. I mean, it's everywhere in the Old Testament, the New Testament, in the Book of Mormon. So I would say get a firm grip on your scriptures, eat and drink a little more, endurance athlete, get Jesus, come follow me around.
Well, one thing I noticed, and I do, it is such an inspiration to hear you talk about your faith. But I don't want to lose another important point. Like as you're telling about your journeys, I lost count of the number of people that you mentioned. And one thing that Jeff and I really, do a lot of talking about, we shared different stories in the book about the power of unity and how we can't create success alone. And you talked about your husband being Superman. Speak a little bit more to the point of why that's so powerful, and why we need others to be happy, to be successful, to live this world.
That's a great question, Tammy. And I'll talk a little bit about Casey, but then I'll also talk about some other mentors in my life. I feel like you when you see someone as they are and what they can be, and you look at them in a way that you can learn from them, right? Then you start to empower yourself because you get out of your own way. So I can tell when I first met Casey, we've been married 30 years. One of his strengths, but I thought back then it was a weakness, was his quiet demeanor and his listening skills and his kindness. And at first I was like, do you ever talk? Do you ever? And then pretty soon, right, we were at a pro rodeo one time and I was running at the mouth, right? He's a bull rider, I'm running at the mouth. And he looks at me and he says, if you don't have anything important to say, then don't say anything at all. Oh, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? And we went home. I probably didn't talk to him the whole way home. And then over time, I realized that his superpower of quiet and listening, I could use. And so I've been trying and learning and growing and reading and studying to be better listener, to be a better, kinder person and not be the one that has to speak all the time, and really try to listen to what people are saying and listen to hear. Don't just listen because they're in front of you. Hear what they're saying and then utilize it and put it in your life. And another friend of mine that hardly talks hardly at all. I get to rope with her once in a while is Larry D guy. And she's a spiritual mover. And she's I mean, I don't know, she probably won 28 times. She's a world champion, but our unique friendship is like we text each other once in a while. I'll get to go rope there. But her superpower is the sparkle in her eye. And that sparkle in her eye is Jesus. And when I see it, I'm just reminded like that is such a great horseman and such a good person. If I can emulate a few things that Larry D. Guy does, I'm gonna be a better Christian. And when I get around other people and I see that little bit of sparkle in there, if I could just be a little bit better, I'm going to be a better Christian. And so, to answer your question, I think you have to get out of your own way, Tammy, and let other people strengthen you and lift and guide you. And I know um, both Jeff and I have had this conversation a lot. He's a great businessman, and he has some really cool coaching techniques. And even though I'm a coach, I can learn from Jeff, right? And he said it in the introduction. I learned from Wendy, and sometimes I think we try to one up somebody, one up somebody. Well, don't one up somebody. Work on being your best you. You and God. That's all you have. No one else is going to be standing there when you go through the gates of heaven. You have to get yourself there. So be a better you. Take your better care of yourself. Make sure you're growing and listening and learning so that you can bring 1% to the table, right? Ed Milet says it best. One more prayer, one more scripture study, one more rep, one more hour driving, one more. If you can push yourself, then the best military guys in the world, they'll tell you the same thing. It's all in your head. If you can do 25 pull-ups, we'll do 26. It's in your head. So over time, make your mind your strongest superpower, because then your body will follow along, right? Your nervous system, your body it's all functioning together. But if you weaken your mind and you put things in your body that aren't good, you'll be on a tailspin set, right? You'll be super anxious or super hyper or super low because you're eating too many things that don't fuel your body. So you got to fuel your body to be that person. Good question.
As you were sharing that before Tammy asked that, I was thinking the same thing of all the people you were mentioning and how important that is. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, but episode number 2, world champion Josh Ross, Wendy's the one that introduced me to Josh. And so, yeah, Wendy knows a lot of people, has an impact on a lot of people. I mean, she's in upstate New York, and she was just introducing us to some ladies there that they've
Right.
been there multiple times because they follow her and they love to learn from her. And so, Wendy, I want I know you're in the middle of a clinic right now, and I told you we wouldn't take too much of your time, but
You're
they are
okay.
learning from you right now, so I'm glad about that.
Yes.
Share with us too, where, because you have such an impact on so many people on social media, online. Where can people find you, and talk a little bit about where they can find you on your website and everything?
Right. So you can find me on all the social feeds. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. I never thought I'd be on TikTok, but my daughter was like, "You should put it on there, Mom. It's really good." And I'm like, "TikTok? I thought it was for like kids." And she's like, "No, no, it's not." So I'm on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Our website is called winhorses.org, and it offers saddle fitting clinics. It offers virtual fits, horsemanship clinics. You can find my schedule there. You can actually book a free appointment for coaching, and then we can go through and see what coaching looks like for you and your horse. And the coaching aspect is huge. Anything from, coaching you in the rope arena to coaching you in your spiritual life, to your personal life, to your business life. I've been in sales for 20 years. So there's just a gamut of things that Casey and I, now we work together. So we actually can help you in a lot of different ways, couples, anything like that. And that's the easiest way to find me, and my phone number, right? My phone number is on my Instagram page. Text me, and I promise I'll get back to you. I was with Cody last night, and she's like, "How many text messages do you get a day?" And I said, "I try to stay on top of them." And it used to be hundreds, and now it's less than 100. In my social media stuff, I am the one running my social media. I am the one answering the emails. I am the one, and hopefully I don't have to always do that, but that's authentic and that's real. And I always want to be real. And so if people are patient with me, I will get back to you, but it's no bot or somebody running my stuff. You're looking at her. And that's the power of God. And he allows me to do those things. And just a little a plug for Josh Frost. Something that really is cool about the Frost family and the Winn family is that little trip through Vernal I took. We all started in this little arena out there in the middle of Ouray. And now Joe Frost, Josh's brother, is actually doing some world class, Frost legacy bull riding schools. Those Frost boys, their dads rodeo together, and then their dads rodeo together. But Josh Frost took my son, Shad Winn, and when Shad wanted to go ride bulls, Josh took him with him, and Josh taught him the ropes again and helped him enter and inspired Shad. And then when Josh went a different direction, Shane, Josh's dad, said, "Hey, Shad, will you take Jake?" And so then Jake and Shad went together. But that family is a family firm in foundation, firm in faith, and they're ethical people that do what's right. And that's why Josh Frost is a world champion. But he's been a world champion since I've known him since he was little. And I dropped Joe Frost off on a corner one time when I was driving him home from school, and he was a naughty little rascal. So the Frost boys, but Josh Frost has a special place in my heart, and so do Lisa and Shane, because we've done a lot of things in the industry together. But number one, we've been friends a long time.
I want to just talk about something a little bit there. First of all, winhorses.org, that's WINN. So make sure
Yep.
you get that. Um, just I'm going to continue talking about Josh. So Wendy and I share books together, talking about different things. And one I shared with her a long time ago was 10x is easier than 2x. Now his new book, The Science of Scaling. I know Wendy just started reading that one. I was rereading it last night, and I actually wrote about Josh in the margins because it was talking about Tom Brady and how his goals were so focused on Super Bowls, not just making the most money, all those sort of things. And it reminded me of and you said Josh was a world champion long before he won the world championship. One of the things Josh talked about in our interview that I think was so important, that reminds me of what was talked about Tom Brady, is Josh says, my goal wasn't, so many people get their pro cards in rodeo and their goal is to make the NFR. He says, my goal wasn't to make the NFR. My goal was to win the NFR, to be a world champion. And, your goals really determine your path and what you're going to try to achieve. And I really think that's something that you emulate, Wendy, is your goals, your overall goals in life include so much with people and faith and what you're doing, and those goals create that path for you. And so I really appreciate learning from you and everything you've shared here.
Thank you.
So a few things while we still One, the whole podcast came about because of the book Tammy and I wrote, Challenger Deep Athletes Rise Above Adversity. We'd love you to grab that book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on tammymatheny.com. You can get it on jeffhagee.com/free book. Also, this is going to come out in a week, but today, as we're recording, Tammy, tell us what's exciting today.
The release of Injured Athlete, a mental game plan for your comeback. And really excited to put that out there and hopefully be a resource that many athletes will benefit from. If you've been in sports long enough, you've dealt with an injury. So we all need
Yep.
help in the mental.
Absolutely. Then I'm going to share two more links. Tammy and I, we have the Confident Athlete and the This Is Good apparel store. You can find that at confidentathleteprogram.com/store, or you've got links through my website or Tammy's website. And also we've got an awesome store at winhorses.org/store.
Yep.
And so we've got some great products there. Some really, I should have had it in the room with me here. Really cool hats. But
You can see it. I got one on.
there it is. It's right there.
Winspiration Nation.
Yes. So, Wendy, any last things you want to leave us off with?
Man, I probably would go on and on, but my battery's about to die. So I'm gonna cut this short. And I do want to thank you and Tammy, and just let everybody know that the more we can study our scriptures, the more we can keep our bodies healthy and strong. Follow people that encourage you to be strong. Be around those people, like the Josh Frost, like the Larry D guys, the Gus Olds, the Casey Winns, the Jeff Hagees, the Tammys. That's really power. And when you can take a hold of that and you know what it is, gravitate to people like that, because light attracts light. And if it feels negative, move away quickly. And as you move away, don't wish them bad, just wish them well, and keep moving forward and do your best. It's all God expects us to do, is our best. And your best is different than my best, and everybody else's best is different. So always do your best. And man, I wish you guys well today. Thanks for having me on. We got to go ride some horses up here in New York, because I got to be to Maine by tomorrow. So hate to cut her short, but these guys they're still all here in tune, listening and smiling. So it must have been a pretty good podcast, I would say.
Well, I appreciate all them listening in. Your phone battery might be dying, but I know your battery never does. I'm actually
That's right.
Exact same thing, Jeff.
I'm going to
right.
be on another call in about half an hour that we're actually talking about some website stuff that I know there's always during that call, there's a little head that peeks in, and I will tell her that Grandma Wendy says hi.
Yeah, that's so good. Her birthday was Monday. Texie's birthday was Monday, and hopefully I get to see her. I'm gonna try to I have to go to a wedding in Utah next week, but I'm gonna go try to see my little buddy Texie and my mom in
Awesome.
Idaho. So, all right. Hey, thanks you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Wendy.
you. Good, awesome.
You bet. Enjoy your day.
What if in just 4 weeks from now, your daily habits, your mindset, and your results look completely different? Better, sharper, more focused. That's exactly what the 4-week win challenge is all about. It's for high achievers just like you, who are tired of starting over and are ready to build routines that actually stick. You'll get the tools, the accountability, and the momentum to crush your goals and build a version of yourself that you're proud of, starting now. So if you're serious about taking the next step, go to jeffhagee.com/win, and let's make the next 4 weeks a turning point in your life.
Thank you for joining us on Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. We hope these stories inspire and equip you to tackle life's challenges head on. Don't forget to visit www.confidentathleteprogram.com/Challenger Deep to get all of our free resources from the book, your copy of our book, and access to 2 free weeks of the Confident Athlete Program. Remember, in life, adversity only visits the strong. It stays forever with the weak. Let's rise above together. See you next time.